Hello and welcome to week 8. So you are officially at the midpoint of this course, and I hope that you have all taken a moment to breathe after finishing your midterm last week, and I will be working this week to get them graded. I hope you are noticing that I am so much more about practicality and applicability as opposed to regurgitation of material. So I know especially at this point in your educational journey, that you can read something and you can say what it is that someone else has said. But to me, especially in the master's program, as you're getting ready to go into the field and have your own classroom, I think it's even more important that you're able to take the information and apply it personally. So even the midterm was meant to do that for you. So this week we're going to get back into the textbook following our normal routine where there will be a theorist that you're going to learn about. You'll have a journal that you need to do. And so this week we're going to be looking at Skinner, who is a theorist I'm sure all of you have heard of. He's very much a behaviorist theory, as they believe that we can control how people are behaving based on our responses to them. So if you look in this week's folder, you're going to find I went a little crazy with some of the resources because there was so much out there. But one of the first things I put in here is a quote that Skinner had said. And the reason that I chose this one is because my biggest passion is literacy in young children. And so I think that it's so fantastic that we are finding a theorist who also thought that literacy and love of reading was really important. So I found this quote and I thought I would share it with you. But as you go through this week's folder, you're going to find here's a PowerPoint that kind of outlines, the life of B.F. Skinner, his major beliefs. His most well-known experiment is the rat experiment. And so I do have a video of him demonstrating his operant conditioning. So the other thing about Skinner is even though he is a behaviorist, and when we think of conditioning, we normally think of Pavlov and Pavlov's dog. There are actually two different styles of conditioning. So Pavlov was a classical conditioning theorist, whereas Skinner is an operant conditioning theorist. And so let me just show you that I found this chart for you that just kind of outlines the differences between the two of them. Really, the major difference comes down to control. So in classical conditioning, people like Pavlov and Watson believed that the subject had no control over their response. So Pavlov believed that the dog had no control over salivating when they heard the bell, whereas Skinner and Thorndike, who's also in the operant conditioning field, they believe that they do have control. Now, even though it is still based on the response of what someone else says or does, there's more subject control. So again, just to make sure that you are really understanding that Skinner, which is what we're looking at this week, is an operant conditioning and not the classical conditioning. You're going to find lots of references of keeping them all together, and even though there are lots of similarities, just be aware that the operant conditioning really is looking at the subject having more control over their responses. So the other things that are in here for you, it's a one-page article, so it's not even going to take you long, but I thought how fantastic that Skinner actually wrote something about new methods aimed at teaching. So because, again, we want to make this practical to us, here is a primary source of Skinner saying, talking about teaching. This is another article that Skinner had written on the generic nature of stimulus and response. So this is his own words as he's looking at the relationship between the stimulus and the response. There's two videos for you. This one is Skinner demonstrating his operant conditioning. This also is the operant conditioning. This is with the pigeon, which is referenced in the PowerPoint. So again, I love it when we can find the actual theorist talking about their theory, demonstrating their theory, because I just think it gets us into their mind so we understand what they were thinking. Again, here's the table. And then, as always, we're going to go back to our journals. Now, next week, I'm going to be introducing you to your final philosophy paper assignment. And so I'm hoping what you're going to recognize is that by taking the time to do these journals each week, you have already started a major portion of your philosophy paper. So next week, I'm going to be explaining that assignment as well as going over some APA requirements so that you're sure that you're aware of what I'm looking for. Remember, APA style is what is used in the social sciences, and so that is something that I expect with your writing, anything that you submit. So your book review is going to need to be in APA formatting as well as the final philosophy paper. So I think that that takes care of us for this week as we get back into the swing of things. So enjoy learning about Skinner, reviewing what you already knew, and hopefully gaining some new information. And I will see you next week.